Now, this is Linda Armistead. She works on the school board, I assume. And I am Garrett Fitzgerald, and I am interviewing her.
I'm Linda Armistead, and I am on the school board in Zone 4, representing Zone 4. And Zone 4 is located within the districts of Mount Juliet High School, the two middle schools, West Wilson Middle School and Mount Juliet Middle School, and also in 4 of the elementary schools, Springdale Elementary, LZ Patton, Mount Juliet Elementary, and Stoner Creek Elementary. I don't think I've left any of those out. But I represent those schools and officially, the school board makes decisions that affect all of the students in Wilson County, and every vote that we make is not just a vote for our zone, but it will affect everybody. So it's important to put that in perspective as we represent the parents and the students in our schools there.
So the second question is, have you ever had to vote on something you've disagreed with? If so, what is it, and how did you go about the decision?
Probably the most difficult decision as board members is when we have to vote on zoning and rezoning. As we are increasing the population in our school system, it requires indefinite decisions concerning where we're going to put all of these young people and these students. So we build schools and then we have to rezone. That is a difficult situation for parents and for students, of course, because you become accustomed to the things that are going on in your school, your sports, your athletics, your teachers, and you feel comfortable. So zoning is probably one of the most difficult aspects of decision making that we've had to make. And when I was running for school board the last term there, I was talking and canvassing people in Woodbridge area next to Mount Juliet Middle School, and at that time we didn't have the middle schools rezoned, and I tried to assure people that yes, you'll probably be going to Mount Juliet Middle School. Well, little did I know that when the maps came out and the paperwork and the numbers came out, it was not that way. And I was very much concerned about it because I knew what the parents and the people who lived in that area and the students who could walk to school, which made sense, were concerned about that. So we looked at the maps and looked at the numbers. And what we try to do in zoning is to equalize the numbers in the schools. We don't want an imbalance in the numbers, that we try to make it as equitable as possible. The number of teachers and the number of course offerings is important to a good balance in a school system. So we want to make sure that that happens. And then looking at where Mount Juliet Middle School is located, if we had that building on the other side of Mount Juliet Road, then people would be able to understand a little bit more about where the students are coming from in that zoned area. Because it's like everybody is going to Mount Juliet Middle School is on the other side of Mount Juliet Road. So the people behind Mount Juliet Middle School now are being zoned now to West Wilson Middle School. And I know they've had complaints and concerns about driving past a middle school that's right there for them. But we're trying to establish a feeder pattern into the high schools. So the high schools, Mount Juliet High School at this moment, are being fed by West Wilson Middle School, and that's what we're trying to accomplish when the new Green Hill High School comes into effect. And then the students who will be fed into Mount Juliet High School will be going to Mount Juliet Middle School. So all of those middle school students will be feeding into Green Hill High School, and all of West Wilson Middle School students will be feeding into Mount Juliet High School. So that's the plan and the purpose. So that was a vote that was difficult in terms of my area, particularly. So I do have another issue that I was concerned about, and this has to do with what I heard most affected elementary students, and that was the parties at school and the food. One of those issues was very difficult. I didn't agree with it, but I do understand the premise of young children and allergies and the grave concerns that some parents have for their students who do have allergies. So we have to be thoughtful and mindful of them. And so the food issue in the elementary schools especially was a difficult to vote for, but yet I understood why we had to vote for that.
Okay. How did you end up on the school board?
Well, I was interested in serving in the educational system because I had been in teaching for 27 years at Mount Juliet High School. I worked another 11 years for an at-risk program here in the school system called Youth Links. So that's a total of about 38 years I've had in the public school system. And I wanted to continue serving in some way. I retired in 2012. I was needed in the area of helping with some grandchildren, transportation, and then my late husband was very ill, so I needed to resign, and that was in 2012. And then my husband did encourage me to get involved with the school system in 2014, so I decided to do that, and I was felt I had the background and the education and had lived in the community for all these years, and I knew the people for the most part. I've been teaching since 1973. That's a long time. I started teaching in 1973. Both my children were Mount Juliet High School graduates. My one grandchild was a graduate of Mount Juliet High School. And then I had two others who attended Mount Juliet High School as well. And the other three are still in the school system, but they're in the Glade area. So I'm very much connected to what's going on in the school system through my grandchildren and my friends and their children as well. So I believe in public education, and I want it to continue to be a vital part of our community, and we have a great school system, and it's been very good to work with Dr. Wright. I've learned much myself as a school board member. It's very different from being an educator in the classroom to needing to lead in a different way.
Wonderful. And which vote have you been most passionate about?
Okay, so the most passionate votes. Definitely, as a previous teacher in the school system, I've been passionate about our teachers getting the pay that they deserve, and that we would support our teachers in this way. We ask so much of our educators in today's system concerning the testing, working with the whole child, which is a whole different concept from just teaching in the classroom. It's trying to meet the needs of our young people in so many social and emotional ways that the teachers are faced with, and we want them to feel supported with all the demands that are on them, especially these days. So it's important that we recognize them not only for just the great things they do every day in our system, but to reward them accordingly. Our county commission has the responsibility of setting up our fiscal budget. The school board sends in the request for the budget each year, and we have to remain status quo in our budget to begin with. Status quo means that we need to ask for the things that we've been given from the last year. It's a status quo budget that we turn in. And then we turn in a needs assessments. That's the second part of it. And we need teacher pay to be improved there. If we did give teachers raises without turning in a status quo budget, we would have to do away with approximately, and we figured that up this year, of about 63 teachers positions. And that means those positions that have to do with electives, perhaps art, band, music, whatever the electives are. And we don't want to do away with those classes. We want our teachers and our students to have the opportunities to grow and develop in many different areas. And so I think those things are vital as well.
Okay.
Oh, let me see. Another passionate, one more passionate thing there. The location of Green Hill High School, that was quite a controversy. So I was passionate about where we placed the high school at that time. And many people felt like it was a hilly area. It is somewhat hilly, but it is looking great. I don't know if any of you have driven by lately. Probably you have, and we all see what's going on up there, and it's going to be ready to go in 2020. We're excited about that. But I was excited that we had an opportunity to vote on this location, because what we wanted to do was to create a school where the students are located. Where are the students located? We have a dense population in this west end of the county, and from Mount Juliet Road back to the county line, Davidson County line, from I-40 to the county line on the northern side. We are probably the most populous area. So placing the school where the students were located was a big plus for keeping students from having to drive all the way through the Mount Juliet area, past the red light, and the traffic jam we have near Park Glen and the Kangaroo station there. So we're hoping next year that that will improve and that students can be closer to school.
Okay. And what qualifications do you need to be a school board member?
Well, not much these days. You do have to be a registered voter. You have to have a high school diploma, and that's all the education you are required to have, and you need to live in the zone in which you are going to represent. And of course, you don't need to have any crazy criminal records with you that could tag along and cause some issues there. So that's the minimal of the requirements there, but I feel that there needs to be at least an understanding of the community that a person is living in, so they understand who they're representing, and to have some educational background is always a plus. And I think most of us on the school board have some educational background, and as well as having our children and grandchildren in the school system, and many of us, I know my daughter is teaching as well, continue that important aspect of supporting education in those ways.
How did your experience as a student influence your decisions as a school board member?
Well, I looked at that question and I thought, I'm not sure I even remember so far back as being a student how when I was in high school, I probably didn't know much about what a school board was. I just knew that I had a teacher and a principal that was in charge of our school, and probably somewhere there were some rules and regulations that came from some place. I didn't think a lot about the school board in and of itself. So I don't think that it became as relevant to me at that point as when I was in the classroom and as a teacher, that you realize that you have another entity, another organization that is making rules and policies for what goes on the everyday scale of what happens in a school system.
Great. And how much of an impact do you have every day at the school board?
Well, I'd say every day we have an impact, because what we do in making decisions concerning policies is affecting everybody, teachers and students, administration. The biggest impact we have really to make is to choose our director of schools. That is the one person that the Wilson County School Board is in charge of hiring. We are not in charge of any hiring or dismissals of anyone except for our superintendent or our director of schools. So that's an important position that does impact because she is responsible for the hiring and the creating of the educational goals and all the good things that happen in our school system. So that is what we do and making an impact in our school system there.
Great. And what do you want for the schools in your zone?
Well, I want not just for the schools in my zone, but for all of the students in every zone. First of all, great teachers. We want teachers to be qualified, dedicated. We want them to be caring and compassionate about what their job is in working with students. That would be the first thing. But in particular, I do have just a couple of building concerns in our zone here. One that I've seen with my as I picked up my own grandchildren from the middle schools, and you probably, some of you experienced this earlier, during the drop-off and pickup line, there are no provisions for cover or for safety for the students, and they are standing out in the rain or they're gathered together in the high school or the middle schools there. So just being very practical. I know that these are costly items because they're on the 10-year capital plan to improve those types of building and maintenance updates, but just to let you know that I see these things and I'm concerned about them, and I want to support whatever funding we have to be involved in the maintenance and updating of our buildings. It's important to create a good environment. We have great schools and we want to keep that environment going for you as students of the coming 21st century. Here we are, so we want to make it good.
Great. And do you plan to add more trade classes to Wilson County Schools?
The trade classes, to add more. Now, I was talking to Ms. Walker, the counselor, earlier today, and we were talking about the trade classes, and she was talking about the number of trade classes we already have. CTE, the Career Technical Education classes, the nursing program, there's an architectural type of program, and the agricultural classes, and every school or the high schools, they have some kind of trading classes. And I would definitely be supportive of more of the career technical education classes. The issue is finding the number of teachers that would be needed to teach these classes. We already have difficulty finding some teachers that are qualified, and the state of Tennessee makes it somewhat difficult for teachers potential teachers who would be qualified, who have knowledge about a particular skill or trade, to come into the school with a type of license to teach. But they have to go through a long process that the state of Tennessee requires before they feel that they're suitable in the classroom. And I do agree that they need some orientation to work with young people and to understand a little bit of their developmental processes there. But at the same time, I think perhaps we are losing out on an opportunity for those people who would be vested in sharing their knowledge and information, who may have retired and want to do something back for their communities that they live in. So we need to think in terms of the legislature and the State Department of Education making it a little easier to make that transition for those people who are interested. So we have to first, what you are getting ready to do for next year, I don't know if you're seniors or juniors in here or what, but you have to sign up for the classes. You're getting ready to sign up for your classes for next year. So the counselors look at the number of students that are interested in those classes. We could offer classes all day long for those trade classes, but we must have a certain number of students interested enough to maintain a class, to create a class, and then find the teacher. So yes, I'm all about the career technical education programs and what we can do for our communities, because our businesses are asking for young people graduating from high school with good quality information and skills so that they can use those skills in their job and their career opportunities.
Okay, great. And has there been a day where you walk out of the school board and felt that the work you've accomplished that day reminded you of why you do your job?
Well, every time we have a school board meeting, we have a group of students who usually present to us, whether it be in music or art or students who are presented who have won awards and recognition for their academic achievement. And in those meetings at the very beginning, it makes us think that this is what we are all about. And it brings it very close to our hearts when we see these young people with all their talents. And we have such a talented and diverse group of young people in our system, and it makes it important to keep focused on that as we make decisions that affect our young people.
I believe that is all the questions we have. If there is anything you'd like to add as your experience of school board member, you can do that now.
There is something else I would like to add, if you don't mind. Again, I was talking to Ms. Walker earlier about some of the classes that we're offering. I know that next year I was excited to hear that an educational foundation class is going to be offered, and that would involve students who are interested in teaching. Our post-secondary schools are not graduating enough teachers, young people who are interested in coming in to the teaching profession. And we need more teachers who are qualified, who are dedicated to work with our young people and make our education what it needs to continue to be. So the class that she was telling me about is going to start next semester, I understand, and I hope to be involved in that. And it's the Foundations of Educational Principles. I don't know what it's called exactly, but something on that order. And then they have planned to do a second and a third follow-up course to that the next year, which I think will be great. And hopefully these young people will see the need and be able to do something that gives them a spark of excitement about wanting to go into the schools and teach. I know that when I did teach, I was a sponsor for the Future Teachers of America. That's what it was called then. I think it's called TAP today. And I had a lot of great kids in there, and we would do all kinds of projects around the school for the teachers on special days and recognitions. We had them out working and planting some trees, making the Mount Juliet High School look better, and a little bit of the environmental improvement look there. But several did become teachers later on, and it's always rewarding to see those things happening, and looking back at the young people you taught, and you see them later on, and they're doing such great things in the community. So I'm excited that we have this class coming up.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I hadn't actually heard of that. My classmates have any follow-up questions? Go ahead.
Speaking of how you're talking about Green Hill High School, what can we expect from it? I'm not going to be able to go there, but what can we?
Well, everything that you have in the schools that you are already established are going to be, those things are going to be offered pretty much. And again, it's the same process. We should have, and let me see the number of students. And I have that somewhere. Around 1,700 students in Green Hill High School, and Mount Juliet High School should have around 1,500 students when we change over. And Wilson Central around 1,500, Lebanon High School 1,700, and Watertown High School with a near capacity of actually 843. It's a smaller school, but that's almost near capacity for them as well. So everything that you will have to sign up for for classes, we hope to have enough students to be able to offer the same thing there, and then to find the teachers to teach those classes as well. And you will get your course books very soon for those, probably, usually it's in the spring, but I'm thinking it may be in December when we get those course offerings ready, because they're wanting to get a jump on creating the classes and knowing how many teachers we're going to need. I believe there was that. So the only thing that is is a detriment to the situation is the football program. And I know many of you have heard about the issues with the football program, maybe. The TSSAA, the Tennessee Secondary School Athletic Association, requires that you create a contract with each team for 2 years. And you have a team that will play at home 1 year, and then at the other school's place of venue the next year, their school. So it's a 2-year for football. And we're in catch-22 when we don't have, we're at the odd number of years for the high school football signing for that contract. And so that is a major decision. I know we talked at length at our school board meeting about the football programs and what our Mount Juliet High School, our great school football team here, is dealing with, the juniors and the seniors. We are trying to provide as many options for the juniors as possible. And most of it involves when we get the numbers fitted for each school, when we know how many transfers that have been on waivers to go to Green Hill if you're out of zone, because it has openings and opportunity for enough openings. We'll know more about what we can allow for that number of juniors to attend or stay. So it's a little tricky. I know that's been a matter of angst for most parents that have young people who are involved in the football program and are concerned about scholarships. But scholarships are not just awarded based on your playing efforts as a senior or as a junior. We have so many scouts. As you saw this morning, I understand you had a signing today for young people here that were given scholarships. And these recruiters from colleges are looking at young people when they're in freshman classes, in sophomore class, or sports, freshman sports, sophomore sports, even before then, in programs like the summer programs, the travel teams that they're in. There's a wide variety of opportunities to get the young people's names out there. Coaches and recruits know who these people are, even before they become juniors and seniors, just about. So they make a good name for themselves. And so I think it would be wise for the parents to think in terms of what is going to be best for their families and what's going to work out for them to encourage their student not to get so upset if it doesn't work out, but to know that they're valued in whatever school they work or play in.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. That was very insightful, actually. I didn't know a lot of that stuff, but I appreciate you coming. I was Garrett Fitzgerald. I interviewed her for what it's like being a school board member, and you did a very good job.
Thank you very much. Well, I very much enjoy and appreciate the opportunity to come and share my excitement for education and the opportunity to meet this class and all the good things that are going on here.
And Armistead, everybody.